Today we're going to take a look at the standard manufacturing S333 Thunderstruck double barrel 22 Magnum revolver. Now this is a weird little revolver that certainly raises a lot of questions. Hopefully today we're going to answer some of those questions. At first look, the Thunderstruck revolver seems to intrigue just about everyone that lays eyes on it. Now, I've tested and put about 200 rounds through this little revolver. I certainly have some thoughts, so let's get into it. Right off the bat, the weight of this revolver seemed to surprise me. Now, it comes in at 18 ounces. Gotta say, there is not much polymer on this little revolver, and so that adds to the perceived weight and actually makes it feel a little bit heavier than it actually is. The Thunderstruck revolver has a somewhat unique trigger in that it's a two-finger design. Now, this is not only awkward for the trigger pull, but super awkward for gripping the revolver as well. It's one of those revolvers, one of those firearms that in order to become proficient at it and accurate is most likely going to require a lot of practice. Now, the trigger pull on this revolver is quite long and quite heavy. Now, this lends itself to be frustrating, but again, with practice, you can kind of master that breaking point on the double action pull, that point where the hammer actually sort of cams over, and you can become a little more proficient and a little more accurate. This type of trigger design, being heavy and having a long pull, also lends itself to being a super good safety device for those that are worried about maybe an in-the-pocket carry or a purse carry. It's really going to take some effort to make this revolver fire. Now, the upper portion of this trigger has a safety device, and if this safety device is not depressed, you cannot pull the trigger back. This is one of the first things that I tried and tested out of the box, and I can assure you that simply by pulling on the lower portion of the trigger, you cannot make this revolver fire. Now, with the weird little trigger on this Thunderstruck revolver, it does make it difficult to achieve a standard revolver style grip. That said, standard manufacturing does offer a grip extension, which will help you get a little more purchase on not only your strong hand, but your weak hand to better control this little revolver. Now, because you're using two fingers to pull this trigger, your strong hand grip is really reduced to just your thumb and your ring finger, because without that extension, there's really no place to grab very well anyway with your pinky. As far as your grip is concerned with your weak hand, it is really no better. Because you have to pull this trigger back with two fingers, it doesn't leave a lot of room in that grip area for your offhand or those offhand fingers. What I have found so far that works best with this particular revolver, the Thunderstruck revolver, is almost a modified teacup style grip. One thing that I definitely like about this little revolver is going to be the sights. Now, unlike a lot of pocket style firearms, these sights are raised, painted, and very easy to see. Now, for testing, I decided I was going to use two different types of ammunition, and I was going to place some targets at both 5 and 10 yards to shoot each of these ammunitions and see how much those groups opened up over distance. Since this is a first impressions video, and it is the first time that I've been able to shoot this Thunderstruck revolver, just want to put out a little disclaimer that the accuracy testing here is in no way scientific. Again, this little revolver is super awkward, and so if you've got years of experience on traditional firearms, more than likely you're going to have some issues getting used to it. It's also important to note here that I'm not using standard size silhouette targets. These targets are 11 inches by 17 inches, and they're provided by one of our range sponsors, Outdoor Products Plus. Now, if you're looking for a wide variety of cool paper targets, be sure to check those guys out. I'll drop a link in the description below. For the first round of live fire testing, I decided to try some CCI Maxi Mag ammunition at, of course, 5 yards. Now, with a little bit of practice on this revolver, I was able to group those rounds fired within the colored area of this smaller silhouette. Now, as mentioned before, the Thunderstruck is a double barrel revolver, and it fires both of those barrels simultaneously. So that's 2 rounds on target with each trigger pull. And one of the questions that comes up pretty often is, how close together are those 2 rounds? How accurate, how close is that 2-round group when you fire? And the answer to that is not very close. I found that 2 to 3 inches in between those points of impacts was going to be about minimal. Moving back to 10 yards with the CCI Maxi Mag ammunition, got some very interesting results. Now, just to change from 5 to 10 yards showed some considerable opening of the groups. As a matter of fact, it was extremely difficult to get all rounds on target, and no matter how many cylinders I seemed to fire, I could not get them all rounds right to land in the colored area of this small target. And what this tells me is that with a shorter barrel, this is 1.25 inch barrel on this little revolver, that it's just not conducive to those longer range shots. It's going to be something that needs to be used for an up close and personal encounter. After trying some of those CCI Maxi Mags, I moved on to some Winchester Super X ammunition, and at 5 yards, pretty much got the same results. At this time, I had quite a bit of experience on the trigger on this thing, so actually my 5-yard groupings on the little Thunderstruck revolver with the Winchester Super X ammunition was a little bit better than it was with the CCI Maxi Mags. Moving back to 10 yards with the Super X ammunition yielded pretty much the same results that happened with the CCI Maxi Mags. After firing both the CCI Maxi Mags and the Winchester Super X ammo through this Thunderstruck revolver, I noticed something else that was a little bit strange. It seemed like there was quite a few rounds that were wanting to keyhole. Now, if you're not familiar with what a keyhole is, basically that round is not going in straight, making a perfect circle. It's kicking over, kind of wobbling, and more or less going in sideways. Now, I attribute this potentially to a couple of things, but the biggest factor, I think, with the keyholing is that with that shorter barrel, it's just not conducive to properly stabilizing the 22 Magnum ammunition. So my initial thoughts after some light testing with the standard manufacturing Thunderstruck revolver is that, especially without a lot of practice, it's going to be really difficult to rely on this particular revolver on anything outside 5 yards. This obviously takes this little revolver out of the running as an everyday carry for probably most people out there. However, I'm not going to discount the fact that it probably has a place with a few people where their carry options or their carry needs are very specific, and they're really only concerned with engagements inside that 5-yard range. Now, I also see some potential to use this little revolver as an educational tool as well. Because that trigger pull is so awkward and long and heavy, it really lends itself to being a teaching tool when it comes to showing people exactly how a double action works. The standard manufacturing Thunderstruck S333 is definitely a weird and unique revolver. And for those out there, like myself, that enjoy weird and unique, hey, this may indeed be a revolver for you. While I wasn't impressed at all with the accuracy, the key holding issues, the groups that it had, particularly at 10 yards, I will say that I enjoyed my time on the range with this little revolver. At the end of the day, though, I think I would continue to utilize my little Taurus Protector Poly 38. As far as size, it's pretty close to the same size as the Thunderstruck. As far as weight, it's pretty close to the same weight as the Thunderstruck. But with that little Taurus, I'm getting a better trigger pull, both double action plus the option for single action. I'm getting a little longer barrel, and I'm getting, of course, a 38 caliber rather than a 22. Hopefully this video gave you a little more insight into what is the Thunderstruck revolver. Hey, if you have any questions out there, or if you own a Thunderstruck revolver and you want to talk about it, be sure to hit us up in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Till next time, don't forget to chain fire freedom.